Hello, we're CBK Gaming. We'd like to invite you to join us as we look at suggestions for games that can be played whilst we're stuck indoors. These games are for between 1 and 4 players and take from 15 minutes to an hour. The age range is from 8 to 13. So join us as we look at some very interesting games. So, the first game that we would like to suggest is Dungeon Mayhem. This is a 1 to 4 player card game where the players take the role of either a paladin, a barbarian, a wizard, all Dungeons and Dragons classes. And it's a quick card game. It takes about 10 minutes to play, if that. And it's a trick game. You can, you're trying to deplete your fellow players' health to 0, whilst yours remains as higher than everybody else's. There is an expansion, or a couple of expansions. There's a Baldur's Gate add-on, which adds 2 characters from the famous Baldur's Gate computer game series, which is Jenha and Boo with Minsk. That adds some fantastic cards, especially for those of us that played those games in our formative years. And there's a Monsters add-on, which comes with a bigger box and some hilarious cards for the different monsters, such as the owlbear and the gelatinous cube. This game is hilarious. It's great fun to play. It was purchased for us, for friends, for Christmas, and we've played it many times since. And we took it to Harrogate's Aircon, played it with our friends Joel and Di up in the hotel that we stayed in, and it had us in hysterics. It's quick, it's easy, it's funny, and whilst it is a game that you penalise your opponents and you're trying to kill your opponents, it's all done in a very comic and comic. It's
a very light-hearted game. Yeah,
very much. And I think because it takes 10 minutes, let's go again. Let's try and win. And yeah, it's a good fun game that will have you laughing round the table with your family.
Yeah, definitely. So,
that said, I'd like to also make a suggestion for the next game, which is Call to Adventure. This takes a little bit longer. This is about half an hour. And it's got some interesting mechanics. We have reviewed this game before. This game has runes that you throw, and the idea, the game, is to create a character. You know your start, whether you're an orphan, whether you're a rogue, whether you're sort of on the darker side of life, or whether you're for the light. You have the middle part of your story, and then you know that the goal, where you're going to. But you have to build how you get through that passage of time, how you tell that story. And you do that by earning cards. And you don't roll dice, you throw runes. And that depends on your successes. You can choose dark runes, which can have some dire consequences to you using. But overall, it's a really good, fun game. Telling a story about something, a character that you are then portraying at the end. That's who you are.
And at the end of it, you've got a character which, if you're playing with the children, their imagination can take it into a whole adventure, and you can get their creative writing juices going and get stories coming out of the characters that you have just created as a family in a game.
Yeah, this game is for a little bit older. This is from 13 plus, though I think we've got friends who I think their children would absolutely love the idea of creating a character. Though I could see some of our friends' young children shotgunning the runes around the room if they weren't careful. Yeah. But then I could see Aid doing that too. So it's one of those games that I would suggest to somebody if you're looking at doing some role playing with your child. I know we've got quite a few friends and family who are using this time to take their children through running Dungeons and Dragons. It could be a good way to create a character and introduce them to the concept of character creation. For people that like live role play, it's a good way if you're stuck with what you want to play next when we're next allowed out. This is a good way of generating a character. It
gives you a backstory. You don't have to try and come up with it. It's all there. You build it up during the game. So,
another suggestion that I think a lot of people have played, it's a very popular game, award-winning game, and that's Ticket to Ride. We particularly like Ticket to Ride Europe. I quite like Scandinavia. There's so many different flavours of this game. We've made suggestions about it before because it's a great way to teach your children about geography, but it's also just a good fun game to play with the family. It is a competitive game, so sometimes that can create tension. I know when I was young with my sister playing with my mum and dad, various games that they often cause tension, and sometimes you don't want that, which is why we've thrown in some cooperative games in this mix. But if you are looking for a competitive game that's got a good side effect of teaching geography that is, I'd say, from 45 minutes to an hour, they're not long games, and got some good components, well made, good fun, Ticket to Ride. Personally, I would suggest Europe, but the original's really good. There's plenty of others out there with just slightly different mechanisms as well. Well worth having a look at, and quite cheap. You can get hold of them quite cheaply. Zatu or Amazon, I'm sure we've got plenty. So,
well, moving on to one of my favourites, Mechikuru. It is a very quick game, easy to pick up. It's a card game again. You're trying to build it's finding the cards that work together, isn't it? To build up the most coins to then buy parts of the city that you're trying to create.
Well, the original is you have 4 items to make your city. A train station is one of them. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but each one generates more coin, so you can choose which ones to build. They go from 4 coins up to I think about 30, and you're rolling dice. Those dice determine how much everybody gets. The different colour cards determine whether you receive money your turn, everybody's turn, or whether they are a negative impact to the other players. But it's a quick game. It's quite good fun.
It is.
I didn't enjoy the Legacy one, and we have got a review of that. And I think that was very poor. But the Mechikuru is a really good fun game.
Yeah, and it's quick to pick up.
Yes,
it's a really simple game, but great enjoyment.
Yes, and very easy to sit down. There's some expansions that make it 5-player, but the base game is 1 to 4 player. It works rather well. Okay, I'd like to then make the suggestion of Last Bastion. I only bought this in the Harrogate Aircon. I hadn't seen it before by Repo's production, and I really enjoy this game. It's a tower defense game. It's got some minis, not many, but each character the players can play is represented by a mini. And it took us once we'd played the first game, took a little bit longer than an hour, and then as we played it a bit more, it reduced, and we got it down to about 45 minutes. And we've lost a few games and we've won a few games. It's good fun. It's cooperative, so if you want a game that's going to pull your family together to try and overcome an objective, this is a good one to get. There's no educational piece. You can't say you're learning geography or you're learning history, but you certainly do learn to overcome problems. All games are puzzles that allow you to teach puzzle and problem solving. This is a great example of that. And to win, you do have to communicate. You do have to work together. So, I highly recommend. I'd say this is between 10 and 13 I think an 8-year-old would be hard to play. I think it's a little bit older. But Last Bastion, the age range they actually state is 14, so perhaps I'm a little bit out, but I do think there are some, I certainly know some of our friends, young children, who would really get on board with this. So that's Last Bastion. Another firm favourite of ours is Museum. This is a competitive game. We suggested it as a teaching tool, but this is also a fantastic, colourful, enjoyable, competitive game where you are trying to build the best possible museum. It's up to 4 players. It does take about an hour. There's plenty of expansions. There's some expansions to make the fifth. There's a 5th player. It's just a very good, fun game, and I don't feel it is competitive, but it's not combative. So you win by doing the best you can. You don't win by taking another player down. And I think sometimes in a situation like this, where you're in lockdown, you don't want a game that's going to cause tension or disrupt the family unit too much. You know, going and playing in a game that's like that in a gaming group that you meet once a week, absolutely. But in that family unit, in this sort of situation, I think a game like Museum is a fantastic option. We also have Champions of Midgard. This is another game that's it's quite old now. I say quite old, it's a couple of years old. But it's a dice rolling game, and it's another game where you do the best you can. You go and defeat the various monsters. You go and fight the trolls. There is a little bit of being able to stitch up other players, so you can give them the poor reputation because they didn't opt to fight the troll. But overall, it's similar to Museum. It's just a different theme. It's a worker placement game rather than building a museum.
And you're just trying to get more glory than
everybody else.
Everyone else.
It is a good fun game, and I think one of the expansions allows a 5th player, and there's a couple of expansions for that that are worth looking at. But that again, it's just one of those sort of games. You can get it quite easily, I think, on places like Zatu, and it's a game that will entertain a family for an hour.
Well, another sort of cooperative one for the family is Forbidden Desert, which is a good one because that's everyone working together. You're all stranded in the desert. You all have different skills, and it's working together to try and uncover the pieces that you need to build your escape vessel before the sandstorms come in and cover it all up in sand again.
I think it's worth noting there's two very similar games, and that's Forbidden Desert and Forbidden Island. They're 2 very good games. There is another one, Forbidden Sky, which we haven't yet played. But both of these are cooperative games where there are multiple characters you can choose, and they've got slightly different mechanics, but if you know how to play one, you can easily learn to play the other. They're very easy to learn, very easy to pick up, and they've got an ability to change the difficulty setting, so you can make it harder on yourself, or you can make it slightly easier, depending on the age range that's playing the game, and that works very well. But again, it's one of those that you get the people sat around the table, your family sat around the table, trying to overcome an obstacle together, and I think that's personally what I find much more enjoyable than that sort of combative sort of game. And I think these are our suggestions. There is another one I'd like to throw in here, and that's it's actually a set: Explorers of the North Sea and Raiders of the North Sea. Really bright, really colourful, quite fun. The Raiders of the North Sea is a worker placement style game. Explorers of the North Sea is a tile laying and set collection game. They're both really good fun games. They're very easy to get there. I know they're certainly on Zatu, and I've certainly seen them around. We'll put links in the description with some of the games here that we've suggested. But this is a really small game, can easily be put out on a shelf. but it is a really good, fun, competitive couple of games. And I think the last game that we've got here that is a beautiful game. I know we've played this with our friends who have been astounded with the artwork and everything else, and that's Wingspan. So this is a 1 to 5 player. It probably takes about an hour, and it's a set collection game of birds, and the artwork is astounding. It's a beautifully produced game that, yes, it's competitive, but you're making the best you can again. It's you trying to find these sets, you trying to build your point score above your opponents. But it's a lovely realised game, and I think it should be one that, I know it's very popular, it's just got that little bit of difference, and I think people will enjoy that. So these are our suggestions. They're just some quick ideas for whilst people are in lockdown at the moment. There's some game suggestions that you can probably pick up on and get delivered, things that can keep you quiet and amused during these long hours. We're also going to look at, the next one will be good solo games, and the next one after that will be looking at story-driven games. So we'll be looking at all ages for that. So the solo, we'll try and look at the various ages, but I think that's going to be a little bit more mature audience, because it's more your war games, and there's normally some complex rules. The story-driven, I think we'll be looking at things like the Story Masters, Ollie's game, which is a lovely starter into that world, all the way up to, well, I'd like to say Tainted Grail, but that's so difficult to get. That's not one that will be in our list, but Folklore or Lord of the Rings. So we will be looking at that, and we'll put those videos out in the next week or so, along with an unboxing of 1666 that we got through the other day. So we're going to put an unboxing up, and we've got a couple of reviews that we're going to start filming. So if you've enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing. It means a lot to us, and we'd like to bring you more about our passion for the various board games that you see here. So thank you very much, stay safe, and we'll speak to you later on. Bye.
Bye.